I think we have a quorum, and we've got a good group, so we might as well get started. I'll call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Rules Committee, and our job tonight is to take up Great Island, calling a special meeting of the representative town meeting, and having a couple of items on the agenda. One is approval of the acquisition of Great Island, and the other is approving the money. Just for starting off, we're going sort of a little out of sequence. Usually the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance would have voted on this and then sent it to us. We're doing it in the reverse. We're calling a special meeting of the representative town meeting, really to give as much time as possible for committees of the representative town meeting to go through their due process in examining all the aspects of this acquisition and being ready to report later on in April. We are tentatively looking at setting a meeting for April 27. June 27, excuse me. June 27, because the contract expires on June 28. So if we don't act, so there's a requirement there for the RTM to act. So
Seth, can I?
yeah, yes.
Make a comment? I think that at times what you said is something that I'm totally opposed to.
The planning and zoning, you're for planning and zoning?
No, this is Great Island?
Yeah.
No.
Well, this is the
Rules
rules
Committee.
committee.
He's got the sign on the door there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Yes.
I think that we shouldn't be waiting for the board, ever, for the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance to act and not assign committees earlier on. I think that you find that if, I spoke to Monica today and Mark when he was running Public Works as well, they were constantly in touch with Gentile, so that when something came up, it wasn't that they were scrambling in 2 weeks to go and figure out what was going on. They had followed the process the whole way, lights, purchase of lights and that. I try and do the same on F&B. And I think that the mistake we made is, once we knew that this was in consideration, we could have at the last meeting already assigned committees contingent upon the fact that something might happen. Because my committee has already been working on this, and I got a comment today that, oh, you're over your skis, when I'm really not. What it is that 2-3 weeks isn't enough time to evaluate anything. And this allows us to move ahead. And so I think that's a mistake, that we have to wait for that. And so we're not getting ahead of those. We're doing our job. That's
Duly
my
noted,
comment.
Jack. Thank you. Michael.
Parks and Recreation is already set up for the 16th, and planning, zoning, and housing are scheduled meetings for the 16th and the 23rd.
And they had one in advance last week.
Okay.
PG&E.
Okay, so
Which was, yes, people read about in the paper.
some of our committees have been active already. Yeah, okay. Frank, good to see you. Welcome. Good to see you. Okay, got it.
And interestingly though, just on the subject that Jack's point, the chairman of PZ&H got some grief for having that meeting,
Okay.
which I don't think she appreciated. And she said, look, we're just having a dialogue on our committee. It's a public meeting, it'll be posted, it's recorded, et cetera, but she felt it was important for us to get ahead of it and schedule that meeting.
Right. Well, in some cases, we don't know whether we're going to have something to act on or not. And we have an example in front of us, right? We don't know how much money's involved here ultimately, because the Board of Finance hasn't voted on it yet. But we're going to start now. We had to get all of that school funding and all those other capital items taken care of first, get them clear the deck and get going.
Again, I disagree. we don't need to know what the number is to know what reports we need, what we're going to be asking for, and other things, to be able to give a heads up to the other boards to say, this is what we're going to need if you're asking us to review this. And so, the school funding started back in April. We had the presentations. There were presentations to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Finance had an excellent presentation that I sent around to members of my committee because it was a really detailed analysis that they did. So I kind of figured that, yes, we doing both of them at the same night might have been too short of a period of time, but at the same token, I didn't need to know what the number was.
So noted, Jack. Okay, so before us tonight is really putting these items onto the agenda of an RTM special meeting and also assigning committees. So looking at it, approval of the acquisition, I'm thinking F&B, it's primarily a financial transaction, so I'm thinking F&B primary, and then PZ&H and Park and Rec, Public Works, and Public Health and Safety. Those, to me, anybody got any thoughts about that? Issues? Try something else? Okay. So.
Would you want comment?
Yes.
I guess my comment would be, and I understand everyone can give input, of course, and all the committees can meet. Obviously, I think F&B makes sense as primary. I think Parks and Rec makes sense, not because Adele and I are on it, but because, number one, whether it gets, there's the outside chance it could be dedicated as parkland. I don't think that's gonna happen, but even when it didn't happen with Highland, our Parks and Rec department does all the maintenance there, right? So that's gonna fall under them, and that might be an extra FTE that they had mentioned. So that definitely makes sense. And then I support the other committees, but I feel like PZNH is really just the mandatory referral was a positive thing. It's like a one statement thing. So if they're gonna speak, I don't think there should be a whole lot of opining on it. And then I guess my question about, I'm just giving you my feedback on public health and safety. I know there were questions about safety or traffic studies, but we don't even know for sure what's going to be on there, so there's not a traffic study, so that seems premature for me to have those as secondary. But that's just my feedback to throw it out so we can have discussion.
I think the public health and safety issue, that the immediate one is, we buy the property today, it has to be secured this afternoon. We have to be able to police it or secure it or whatever, so for that reason, I would put them.
And you have to worry about liability, I would
Yeah.
assume, somebody gets hurt on the property.
Because if we do absolutely nothing with it, we keep the tenants in, we keep the stables in, we are now responsible for the security, which we aren't the day before. So to me, public health and safety does need to be on.
I almost feel like it's every committee except for education and TGS&A.
Right. The other thing that I wanted to add in reading the contract, and I had a very good conversation with Monica this afternoon, but one of the concerns, and I've already had this conversation with Wayne, is that we're not buying the oyster beds.
Right.
Now, I'm not proposing we do, I'm not suggesting we renegotiate any contract. I'd just like to know where they are. And it's funny because I think when I was walking with Jim, and you were saying that they have oysters there, I think it was in Todd's Point area, that area that the muddy area was. So I need to know that we're at least dealing with, if we step off the land, are we destroying an oyster bed? What's our liability for that? Does it preclude us from doing certain things around the island? So I guarantee we won't be polluting, because that's not who Monica is at all. So, but that's something that I think that would fall under land use, because the environmental and other things like that sort of falls in that category. So it's just, not that it's major, it's just something that I read and said, oh, that's interesting.
That can also be part of the 20 questions each person asks Thursday night.
Yeah.
Well, PZ&H,
So I
figure that out.
just raised
You could use PZ&H committee to look at that and see whether we have any boundaries there for that reason or not? You know?
Gentlemen, what's our duty to the owners of the bids?
Right, yeah.
Good. So I think we like F&B first and everybody else second, except for Ed and TGS&A. And unless there's a modification to the charter or something in the process of all of this, but right off the top, we don't see it.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Change the
And I
law.
see you smiling over this one. All right, good.
Here's my next question, and it's maybe a Wayne question.
Yes, sir.
When I was reading the agenda, this is sort of like a bond in trying to separate the appropriation with the bonding, because if we approve the appropriation, but we don't approve the funding, then how do we buy it? So even if we're approving the contract, don't we have to approve the contract with whatever source of financing the Board of Finance has decided to do at the same time? Because approving the contract that we're gonna buy without saying how we're buying it, I mean, the last I checked, and Jim can correct me, we don't have 100 million sitting in our coffers right now.
Well,
All right.
when the Board of Finance votes on appropriating the money, it'll either vote to appropriate it from the general fund, of which, well, technically, there's enough money in it now where we are in the cycle, it
Right.
won't. So it'll vote to appropriate it via a bonding resolution.
So those would be, I'm assuming that the purchase contract and the appropriation and bonding will be one resolution as opposed to two separate ones.
It would work the same way, although the resolution not in front of us that we did for whether it's the track repair or the sidewalks, it'll be an appropriation and
And
bonding
bonding.
authorization, is
Yeah,
that correct,
that's-
Wayne?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
it'll
so we're all in agreement on that, okay. I just want to make sure people understood, it's not two resolutions, it's one resolution.
But just to be clear on that, like when the Board of Finance sends forward a bonding resolution, it's not committing or locking in the exact debt structure of which it will finance, it's allowing us to issue, to issue bonds.
Similar to last night where I read Jen's disclaimer that it depends upon the structure, the term, the years, the interest rate, and everything else, and anything else that we're reporting on is at best an estimate at this point in time.
Correct.
Okay, so we're saying, in a sense, you can't have one without the other.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so it's one, so it's one item. Well, that just shortens our meeting because we've assigned we've already assigned the committees. Thank you for that, Jack.
You're welcome.
And so, can I have a motion, please, to assign, well,
Mark has a
we'll assign the items and then we'll call the meeting, okay? So first, to assign F&B primary, PC&H, Park and Rec, Public Works. Public Works because we've got the sewer. And Public Health and Safety as secondary. Can I have a motion for that, please? Mark, second, please. Great.
Who was that? Thank you.
Also on Public Works, and this has been discussion, and again, we've had this discussion and other people have noted it. The current road there only takes 1.5 cars. So I'm anticipating that Public Works will be involved in determining whether, how to widen the road, whether or not a gatehouse has to be there, and other things along those lines. So it's gonna be more than just
The sewer.
the sewer, yeah. There's certain things that we know just to make it functional.
Right.
There's an issue,
They're gonna
there's
be
one
involved.
road in. There's one road in and it's narrow, it's really narrow.
So on that note,
Yes, Patty.
can we talk about what we would generally like the committees to be talking about and giving feedback, I guess, at this meeting? Because, you know, it's 2 weeks. They're not gonna know the size of the road. They're not Ed Gentile. They're not an expert on that. And so basically what a committee chair does is report what, what questions, concerns, feedback happens in their committee and gives their feedback on, and then the vote, right?
Yeah.
Within the committee. So I just,
Well, the
Guess I'd like to
committees
see
have a
some
number
kind
of
of
people who
structure
can reach
around-
out to different areas in the town to research what the
They need to
plans
do.
are.
I mean, well, that's kind of the whole
So I
point of
think
this whole
that's-
thing, is them asking questions that we need to know, like, they might, even though they aren't going to have the answers, having the questions is helpful in determining, like, I just go back to, like, when I think about what we went through for a $6 million purchase of Highland Farm, and the meetings upon meetings, and all the discussions of that went on for months and months and months. And we're asking committees in 2 weeks to decide $103 million. So I think it's fair for them to have a meeting and come up with questions that we don't have the answers to, because that's part of the
I
process.
don't have a problem with the questions at all. I think it's important to do the due diligence. I guess,
And I think they have to listen to people who speak on Thursday night. They
Yeah.
have to be receptive to the questions that the town is asking.
There's but then we have experts in town hall, and
Yeah,
they're knowledgeable on this, so each committee needs to reach out to that person.
And I also want to add something
Or
else.
persons.
This isn't just, if we're going to be transparent with our taxpayers, we need to be able to give multiple scenarios. If this was just that we were going to buy 103.5 million, including the costs and everything, and the place was going to lay fallow for the next 100 years,
$100
yeah. If it was just going to lay the way it was for the next 100 years, then I'd say, yes, we're voting on 103 plus, but we're not. So there has to be at least some understanding of what potentially needs to be done. Is our insurance going up? Are additional FTEs coming on board? Our roads need to be done. Their only bathroom right now is in the stable, so are we going to have parking there? So these are questions, and worst comes to worst, we may have to assign some estimates to it. We're losing money on the tax things, but we have other revenues that are coming in. I believe there's 9 points of revenue that are there. Does this, and this is a conversation we'll have with the Board of Finance, but members of my committee have already raised it. And I raised it to Monica, and she was very responsive about 2 weeks ago. There is a potential that since this 100 million is being issued prior to the 77.5 or other debt that we have, we may see, based upon what Moody's wrote about our town, about maintaining low debt, that adding this on to at least the end of the year debt is going to be 176 million plus a little bit of change. But when we add on the 77, we may be over what the guidelines are, and so we may move from AA to AA plus, which is maybe a 10 basis point change in that, but we should at least address that that's a potential. The same way that not all of this is going to be tax-free, so maybe 5%, maybe 10, but I'm probably guessing about 5% will be it will be tax, it won't be tax-free on it. And Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the differential may be something about 25, 30 basis points between the difference as it stands now in the marketplace. Not that it's significant. And the numbers that I did get, I do want to mention, because somebody called me and said, oh, it was terrible that you suggested there was no pro forma. No, I knew that there was. I got a copy of what was done in April, but
sir,
it was,
you are primary,
yeah.
and I got a feeling we're gonna see this.
But
So
all I'm saying is that the initial dollars were done on 20
you're
years,
gonna be
30
there
years now allowed.
with the numbers.
Yep. So I'm just saying that that's the type of thing
Don't,
that the
we're not
committees will
limiting what they
naturally
can
do.
look at, for sure. And I think, I think everybody can understand that being assigned a particular area where they have some expertise and some knowledge, that they want to dig, to look at and listen to the selectmen as to where they think we're going and what's going to be put on the table to go forward.
I think what's going to be important, Seth, is just, you know, there's talk about, you put some estimates on numbers on for things, and I think if we try to put estimates on the what ifs, it's not going to be real. It's not going to mean anything. But I do think that it's important to get a sense for the what has to be's, you know, such as if we need a bathroom, if we need to change the roads, if we need to, whatever we need to do to use it as it is today, because the standards of which the town will be held owning it, even if it's used exactly as it is today, are different than if the Steinkraus estate owns it. So there are some costs, even to use it with not a single change to program or function. And I think those would be the most important things to understand.
And I think those are the most important to focus on when you're talking about, well, what are the carrying costs here? We've talked about a conservancy being formed to kind of plan out where we go after we own it. And that's another subject. And anything that they do, they're gonna have to come back to the RTM to get funded. So we're not losing control of that. But I think that these committees need to identify what the carrying costs now are. As you mentioned, all of these little pieces that to
Or what
just,
they will be, not what they
Yeah.
are. We know what they are. You know,
well,
it's
I'm sorry, they're
$400,000.
already on the table.
Yeah.
We know the sewer's gotta go in, right? You know, that's what I mean. Does that make sense?
And we hope that
Yeah.
the Conservancy will also be a big part of fundraising, like we see what happens at Waveney, right?
Right.
Parks and Rec maintains the fields at Waveney, but the Conservancy maintains the beautiful building at Waveney. If you go in and do the research on the Philip Johnson place that Lois had told me about, right? They went in, bought it, spent a lot of money, and they divided.
Well, that's a little different.
That's a little bit different, but I'm just using-
Philip donated it to the National Trust for Historic Preservation.
Yeah,
They
there's
own it.
$150 million.
You're talking about Grace Church and he's talking about the glass house.
Oh, I think you said Philip
She
Johnson.
did, she said Philip Johnson,
I'm
is- so
Okay.
It's,
you picked up, you answered what she said, she used the wrong name.
I use a different product, so
Yeah.
same
Okay.
developer. But anyways, to that point, that's one of the benefits I think we will have going forward when we don't have all the answers to all the numbers, but we hope that we'll be able to build this and fundraise for wonderful things going forward
And
there.
I have one other request, and
Yeah.
not to put Jim on the spot here.
You mean not to put him on the spot again?
Yeah, really, yeah.
No, I can ask him what the debt differentials are, that's his business, he understands that. And we rely on him when he sits up there, and even when he doesn't, for that information. We would appreciate if and I know that Kate and Jen have been out of town in Austin, which is part of the reason we haven't gotten here. But the electronic financial model that was being presented yesterday, can you send a copy to us of that so we can look at it with what the assumptions are on that?
In the graphs at JC?
Well, the graphs, but the actual physical model on how you came to it, the electronics, the Excel spreadsheets, and other things that was used.
Yeah, we can share that. I mean,
Thank you.
the debt runs were provided.
Yeah, I have the
Municipal
debt run over
advisory,
here
yeah.
for the most part, but I think this is 20-year, and I didn't know if he was doing 20-year, 30-year yesterday.
I hear a continuing discussion between you and Mr. Palin. Now, it's just a.
The two of us, I'm sure, will be talking over the next couple of weeks.
Some dialogue there. Yes, Lois.
I'm just wondering if there's some way we can combine some of the committee meetings, and it'll be up to each committee chair to see if there's somebody consistent. But there's certain people like Jim and Monica that are gonna need to interact with all of the committees, or most of the committees, and somehow, and Mike ends up supporting them on technology. That if there's ways that we can combine at least the Q&A part, and then each committee goes off and has their separate discussions to try and use the time efficiently for the people and get answers to questions.
My answer would be absolutely. We do it now, and we certainly would want to continue to do that. The first selectman has been very clear that she's available. She will be there. We just have to set it up with her, and but she's said she's been willing to get together with the committees to talk with them. So that fits right in, and she certainly would appreciate having a combined meeting with folks. All right. Anything else?
Hey, Seth.
I think we've given everybody some pretty good, oh, Adele.
Just two things. One is that, you know, that at the PowerPoint last night, that you guys are gonna give again, like it on paper.
Would you,
Oh,
thank
sorry.
you. Ah, there.
The PowerPoint last night, I'd like the digital copy of it, not just the video. I mean, I actually dropped into the office today and they said that they would do that, but I just thought I would say it out loud here. I think when people listen to that, again, they'd like to have the drawings in front of them so they can refer.
So, I got here a little bit late, I'm not sure if did you let the committees know that the town created a little module on the website that it's called like Great Island Purchase, and the Board of Selectmen video from last night and that entire PowerPoint presentation is all loaded up.
It wasn't loaded this morning, they were intending to load it.
Yeah, I think it was loaded up
I knew it was coming. yeah.
midday, but it's right on the front,
I tried to find it, I couldn't, that didn't mean anything.
It just means it's not
Call
easy to
me,
find.
call me, I will help if there's a problem.
Okay, thank you.
That's
Yeah.
a good point though, Seth, with this little dialogue right here. If we put that out, a link so people just can press the
I
link.
mean, it's good to see
Right.
the video, but it's great to have the written word in front of you. And the other part is, the other thing that was mentioned, is tours for all the members of the RTM of the property. Really,
I'm doing a bus route, it's $5 each, we can.
The tours, the first selectman informs me that she's organizing tours for the entire RTM in pieces, and that she would be
Yeah,
back
she
to
told
us.
me. Yeah, okay.
Just
Wanna
I
make
called
sure
her and heard
everybody
that there
knew.
might be one this weekend, and I said, it's okay to invite me. I'll
Okay,
come.
she just said make sure that we didn't have a full committee.
Quorum.
That would mean that it was a meeting.
Right.
So you need to split your people up.
Good point.
True.
Unless Monica's one.
Only if they're, in a situation like that, I don't think you'd have to worry.
But you could still have a conversation, I think Monica's point is well taken.
I do too.
It's
Yeah.
easy enough to do.
It is.
Well, and they had to turn out.
Fair, okay, show me before I leave.
No, it's right on the front page.
All right.
Oh, it's right on the front page, excellent, the last I looked at was
Institutionally.
terrific, thank
Is
you.
it practical matter?
Okay, so, let's, put, the agenda together here for the RTM, to, vote a meeting on June 27 at 8 PM in the, auditorium. Yes, I see Lois.
Are we asking for masks at that meeting? You can tell where I stand.
Masks, as far as I'm concerned, are optional. You wanna wear a mask,
Okay?
be my guest.
Seth, it's a
Excuse me,
hundred.
Good
Seth.
point, we're not, yes.
Point of order, I think.
I think
I
we
have a
should vote
motion
on
here.
that.
I think we have a motion to assign, do we have to vote on that motion?
Yes.
To assign
Yes.
committees?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, all
We
right.
never voted.
Good, good, okay, thank you. Good, so, can I have a motion to assign?
We have the
We
motion.
have the motion,
We
we
got
have
a
a second.
Yeah.
Ready to vote?
Yes.
All right, those in favor? I see it's all yes, looks unanimous. Noes? Notice when you're all here, I can just start with the yeses, it's always much more positive. I don't see any noes, and I don't see any abstentions. Okay. Thanks,
So-
Mark.
Can we go to the next thing? I've had several of my members request that even though we had a couple of kinks in there periodically last night, that we allow to have some type of hybrid meeting, and maybe what we can, because people are gonna be out of town because of the timing of this, it's, kids have graduated school, people go on vacation, and not everybody's going to be around, and that in order to avoid what we had last night, is that district by district, they at least guarantee that half of their district is in person, which would then allow us to guarantee that we at least have our 51 and can do our business.
Well, that's what I was trying to stress at the last meeting, that it should be stated that you should come in person unless you are sick. or
Right.
have some, like you're out of town.
Right.
And then you have to be, we needed, like last night, we needed more people in the
Yeah.
room.
We only needed 2 more people last
Yeah,
night,
but
and
what-
it would have been crazy.
But
And then
people-
it would have been easier to spend our time.
When I talked to other people, they were like, oh, it was just an option like any kind of meeting.
No, we
Yeah.
needed a note
My-
to
I
go
was
out,
my
and,
friends,
you know, 2 days
listen,
before, and
we
have
cannot
our
have-
district chairs pushing for it. Yeah.
My friends, we cannot have another meeting like we had last night.
No.
Cannot do it.
I
And
second that.
without-
All in favor?
You notice I kept this general, okay? There's no finger pointing here because I've been on the other side of I sold systems to big corporations for a long time, and half of it was what I told them we could do, and the other half was what we actually wound up being able to do. Anyway, that's why I would prefer to have, you know, just a regular face-to-face meeting. If people can't make it, they can't make it, but for $100 million, I would ask them all to sit down and examine their schedules and see if they can't do that.
Seth, I find that to be totally inappropriate comment, since this is a special meeting. If this was at our regular meeting, I think you have every right to say it because it's been planned, they knew it was here. But this is after school is out, there are people that leave on vacation with kids or doing additional college tours or other things like that. I do think that we have to say exactly what Ann said, that it's going to be an in-person meeting, but if you're out of town or that we will do the hybrid. It guarantees that we'll have a quorum necessary on the floor, but it also gives other people an opportunity to participate. And this is $100 million. It's not every day that we spend $100 million.
That's why I'm trying, yeah, Teresa,
I'm looking at Lois and Mike's faces, so I'd love to hear what they have to say.
I saw them all now last night.
I'm
and
sure you
I'm-
did. I'm looking at their faces
I'm
now.
familiar with the pain and stuff,
I
yes,
guess
go
I'm
ahead.
really
I could see her eyes under the mask.
Yes.
Okay, I'm really concerned that we can actually deliver. It should have worked last night because we had thoroughly tested it and it didn't. There's, as you know, Seth, because you were there, right? I'm uncomfortable setting up another opportunity for us to fail. And, you know, it should have worked yesterday. Will it work again? And before I even deal with the technology, I anticipate that Great Island discussions will be intense. There'll be a lot of speakers, a lot of back and forth, a lot of movement. Last night was very rigid. We knew exactly what was going to happen, how it was going to go. People could have spoken, but we didn't, and it didn't happen, so it was fine. I'm concerned that we will set up a false dichotomy that says that you can do this, and we might have trouble again, or people will want to speak from remote. We had it set up that, we thought we had it set up that it would work. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a crapshoot to try it again, and.
Well, I think it is. I think it is a crapshoot.
It is a crapshoot if people aren't really understanding.
Lois, do you think we should have
I got
in-person
you.
meetings?
Frank?
Is that what you think?
Yeah.
Could we consider the pros and cons of giving the 6th district chairman additional responsibility? Just like you have an art auction, where the bidders, you know, talking to their people who are in Saudi Arabia or something like that. If you looked at the absentees last night, they're coming into Lois and Mike for voting, or there's I don't even know how you did it. But if we diversify that to the 6th district, and they establish, you've got, in the worst case, maybe 4 people out in that district. Could be worse. Then they get in touch with those 4 people, and their 4 people are watching on 79, and it has a vote come in, they transmit it to a trusted person.
Yeah.
And the trusted person
We don't have a way to
breaks
do
the
that,
vote.
Frank. Yeah, Lois.
Frank, I want to answer that because
I'll get
Wayne
you,
said to
Wayne.
me last
I'll get
night
you.
that we cannot vote based on the rules we have, the laws we have in town, by texting, and I assume that means by email also. So we can do it by the polls because they are recorded and stuff. So I totally understand what you're saying. That is exactly how Greenwich does it. They send their messages in. And we can check with Wayne when he comes back, but he told me last night that we cannot do that kind of.
Because we haven't been allowed to do that in committees. Like, the committees have not been allowed to have members who are not present text in or email their votes.
All right, yeah.
So As you know, I've been a proponent of doing the meetings live. And I really haven't changed from that for a lot of the reasons we saw last night. But I'm very sympathetic to Jack's point that this is a special meeting and it is right after school is out. So people have planned vacations. So I'm concerned about that. I like Ann's suggestion of, and really putting some strict, rules or guidelines, or what we want to call them, where ask the district chairs to make sure 50% can be there. Tell people that if you choose to dial in, you need to dial in 15 minutes early so that everything can be tested and to the extent possible.
Yeah, but that
And then
doesn't work.
number two, if you expect to speak, be there in person. Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
And you may not be able to vote. I mean,
Right.
if the
Yeah,
system
no,
goes
that's
down, you
the
may
other-
not be able to vote. But at
Um,
least they can feel their participation.
I'm the biggest supporter of in-person.
Adele,
I think
Adele?
I would not, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. I would not, I would like to hear Wayne, because I would not want anyone to come back and say, you know what, they just didn't follow proper procedure, this is $100 million, I'm gonna sue you, the town can't do this. I would be very, very careful that we would give anyone the excuse that we hadn't followed proper procedure. As much as I think I agree with Jack.
Please.
Pardon me, Wayne would be some.
Me thinking. Sorry.
What was the question?
okay, somebody had a question for,
My question was, if we tried to do a hybrid and it broke down like it did last night, would we be sort of liable to someone say, okay, this isn't a valid meeting, this is $100 million, the town can't do this, I'm gonna take action.
Two things. I think we have to be careful, because we are obligated under the.
Wait, I'm sorry, could you speak
Yeah,
up a little
speak
bit?
up.
yeah, he's been in court all day, so he's like,
I think we have to be cautious, because we have an obligation to complete this transaction by the 28th. So if we ran into a problem on the 27th, the system went kaflooey, and we couldn't do it. We have to gather it together in meeting sometime on the 28th before midnight on the 28th, that's one problem. Secondly, when you use that hybrid system, I'll double check the statute of this, because the revised bill was just passed in June. And if a member of the public asks you for the opportunity to participate in that way, you have to see to it that they have the right to do it. I believe, I just mentioned this to Jim, I believe there's a requirement for a 24-hour notice that they have to give you, that they want to participate. It's not like they can walk in the door as the meeting starts. And you also have to be sure you notice that in your agenda. So there are some issues we have to be very careful of. My major concern is that for some reason this isn't what it's going. But last night we couldn't get them back online. We didn't have a quorum. We had to
No.
walk away. It was done.
no, we came within an ace of having to cancel the whole thing last night because we temporarily lost our quorum.
Wait,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
a little
yeah,
back.
Please, wait, 1 second.
No, not knowing the voting requirements in the charter, I'm not trying to anticipate, again, trying to get a partial win here. If somebody can't make it because they're flying wherever the hell, is there a way we could do something where maybe they could vote by affidavit or some sort of, certifiable, authenticatable process so that even if they can't participate in person, they can at least register their vote?
I would love to say yes, but the answer is no. The charter makes it very clear that you can't vote by absentee ballot. With this new statute, there's a system that allows you to do it. There's a general principle that John Jones is away. He can't vote by absentee ballot.
Wait, it's really hard to hear you, I'm so sorry.
The answer is simply no. They can't vote by absentee ballot.
Just asking.
Yes, Frank.
But Wayne, I've been told by my colleagues that this is a bad idea, but I'm waiting for you to tell me it's a bad idea, which is,
I don't get a vote.
but that's all right. You're the second bite of
Sometimes I'm
the,
glad I
second
don't
bite
get
of
a
the
vote.
apple. I was a proponent of having our 6 district leaders accept some responsibility as a trusted person to corral the remote votes through some mechanism, text, phone call, email, whatever works, to receive the wishes of the member of their district and then report it in. And I've been told that doesn't work, and so you need to tell me that too.
In light of what we saw last evening, unless we can assure ourselves that it won't happen again, and I'm not bright enough to do that.
No, he's proposing something very, very different than that.
Rather than the last night model where the votes came in centrally, have the votes come in by, give our district leaders more responsibility, district chairs, to record the votes for their district, and then turn it into Kristen.
You're talking about by text.
Like by text or
By
email.
text.
So the people are not there, they text the district leader with my vote.
I do not believe that the existing statute allows for that.
But Wayne, also, one of the things that we're saying different is that we have to guarantee, regardless of if we're doing a minor hybrid for those who are not capable of being there, that we're guaranteeing that we have more than quorum in-house.
Yes.
So that even if the system breaks down, our meeting goes forward and we can execute our decision on the 27th, a day before the contract
And you all,
expires.
in addition to that, Jack, you also have to be careful that you give to the general public an equal opportunity to participate. They're required to have that opportunity.
Fine.
We can't do it if we can't satisfy ourselves with the system working. The system breaks down, we almost became.
Actually, wait, what were you
So
saying?
the public,
I think we should just.
excuse me, please, excuse me. The public wouldn't have to be face to face.
No,
Yeah.
Unless they had, you're saying they dial in too, huh?
they could, they have the opportunity to do
And
it.
then if it crashes,
That's the
yeah,
problem.
Michael.
I had said earlier, I think Wayne was out of the room, that's why I'm trying to get this corralled a bit.
Right.
That anyone, what if anyone that speaks, whether they be RTM or they be public, are told that to speak, you have to physically be present? I agree that it has to be equal for the public as well as to the RTM. But what you were assuming was that the RTM could do it either way, but that what Seth said, the public would have to be there. I had proposed that anyone who planned to speak had to physically be present, and it would be noticed as such. Would that be possible, Wayne?
No.
It
Okay.
it sounds like we have to have an in-person meeting.
Well, it sounds simpler and easier if we have an in-person meeting, and more predictable if we have an in-person meeting.
We completely agree with that, but I think the challenge we're having is that because it's a special meeting, right after school is ending,
Understood.
we're concerned about people, but
That's a fair concern, I understand that.
that's it.
But if in fact you're going to give the members the opportunity to do it remotely, then you have to have an equal opportunity for the members of the general public.
So Teresa,
It's just a simple question.
Wait,
Was
Jim,
last
you-
night's problem a go-to-webinar problem, or was it technology in general? And I only ask that because I personally think Zoom is a much friendlier platform, and I'm wondering if Zoom would make it more successful, no?
I don't know, the voting wasn't a problem. Once we sent people the TV 79 and the YouTube link, it's like one member sent me, he said, I was at my hybrid meeting, I was watching it on TV, and then I went to my computer and I voted.
That's what I did. I was texting when we were low on the quorum. I was asking people to come, and we said we got to come, and that helped get us towards a quorum. And then I texted 3 other people before my phone died and said, please go to Channel 79 YouTube, listen to it there, and then if you're able to vote on the poll, do it. Most of them were able to, and then some.
One of my members had a hard time. She was texting me that, she has a lot of kids at home, she's working off of one device, and trying to toggle, it kept logging her out of GoToWebinar when she was
That's the
trying.
problem, if she only has, if they only have one device.
my friends, from my observation, this thing is quite complex. There are a lot of pieces to it, and they gotta come together just right, or this thing doesn't work right. We were half an hour late starting, that's just for a kickoff. And then on each vote, it was like, I don't know, we got it or we don't, do we have a
Well, no,
quorum?
we had there was a 1 minute and 45-second delay on YouTube, so we had somebody timing YouTube from when the vote ended in-house to when the vote ended online, so everyone had the same amount of time to vote. And so that created a 1 minute and 45-second delay.
Once we got started, we were okay.
I disagree, I'm watching.
Like I disagree.
I'm sorry.
I
Yes,
saw that,
excuse me,
Jim,
Jack.
Jim you had your hand up in a question, so please ask.
Well, I would just say we were told, because we've talked about this, holding a hybrid meeting, and what we were told is that if any member of that board or commission is allowed to participate hybridly and vote that way and interact, then you need to guarantee that every member of the public that wants to participate remotely can also do that. So I guess my question would be, if you guys would try to have it remotely, and one person of the 100 was having a problem and not able to participate, whether it was their internet, this internet, humidity, whatever it was that caused the problem, do you run a risk of having a problem that the public wasn't able to sort of engage, although you allowed members of the RTM to engage from home?
I got you, which
But-
is sort of what you said, right?
But can we do something else that the
Jack.
other, can we do something else that the other boards do? So, if I want to make a comment, I believe, at the Board of Finance, I don't know if this continues, but the commentary had to be handed in at like 5 o'clock of the day of the meeting, for the public to do, and you only had the commentary at the beginning of the meeting, not during the meeting. So other boards have done that. The Board of Ed does commentary at the beginning, public comments at the beginning, and they do not have commentary during. So if we adopted that, would that change that procedure? It would always allow the public to make the comment. I'm just asking.
My point is, my question was,
Yeah.
whether you allow the public to engage at the beginning of the meeting, the middle,
Or
the end,
if they can.
or any time if they have a glitch. If one of the 100 people that want to speak
Gotcha.
has a glitch.
Yeah.
But the 51 RTM members at home don't have a glitch, do you run into a problem where you've now allowed members of that board to participate and not the public? And that's.
Yeah.
that's the-
All right, yeah.
I'm just raising
One
points
second,
that people
please.
raised to me.
Wayne?
Obviously, I'm gonna be there.
Everybody, just 1 second, I recognize Wayne.
You don't want to give anyone who may be unhappy with what we're doing the opportunity to raise any claim that would not otherwise exist.
Thank
We
you.
have certain rights, but you want to see to it that they just can't have an issue that they can raise after the fact. Because they'll be looking for it.
Yeah,
Yes.
my point, yes.
All right, yes, Joe.
This is a big deal. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity that we're dealing with here, and we can't screw up. Because any little thing, we lose the whole deal. So, I'm not for taking any more chances.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, are you guys, we don't have I mean, it's easy to make a motion in favor of having a face-to-face meeting, okay? But if we voted down, we still don't have a counter if you want to try something else.
But we still have to vote.
I'll accept the motion.
For what?
I left it open, I'll accept the motion.
Have a meeting? We'll have a meeting. I make a motion to have the meeting.
I'll accept a motion to have the meeting face-to-face. And yes.
I'll make a motion to have the meeting.
Thank you,
I'll
Teresa.
second.
And Ann is seconding,
I'd
all
like
right.
to- I'd like to make an amendment that has a meeting face-to-face with the masks.
I second that.
If there's gonna be, if we're gonna force 100 people to be in a room, I appreciate if they were wearing their masks.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on masks,
I'll second
discussion.
that, because we've been through this before.
We got slow down
It
here.
gives people confidence to come to the meeting.
Adele, they,
I concur.
amendment,
What?
and
I have, our distinguished clerk is typing. Let me know when you're ready.
Set?
No, I gotta,
Okay.
ready, Mark?
Well, I got the amendment, but who made the initial motion for the?
Adele.
Adele.
I'm the amendment.
Adele is
I
the-
made the motion.
I seconded.
Yeah,
Got it? Okay, we're good.
Sorry.
We're good.
okay, yeah, Joe.
What
This
were
is,
the,
this is.
what were the
comment
conditions
on-
we operated under last night as far as the,
I can't, excuse me, I can't
mask?
hear.
Ladies, please.
Yes.
Hey, ladies, I can't hear, please.
What were the conditions that we were operating under last night with the mask?
Mandatory.
It was mandatory last night.
Everybody had a mask, and
Yeah.
even Mr. Palin, who walked in without one, put one on.
I took mine off because
I
I
should-
felt like people couldn't hear me
No, you
anyway.
actually had.
All
Jack
right.
took his off.
All right.
You know, after a
I took a
while,
picture.
it doesn't look like we mean what we say.
Okay.
It's a one in a lifetime deal, don't screw it up.
I hear you.
No, if you're
Okay.
at the lectern,
Yeah.
We're gonna follow that.
No, it's mandatory.
All right, it's
for
mandatory,
attendee,
except
not
if you're at the
for
lectern.
moderator,
All right.
I'm the speaker.
More comments? We ready to vote on masks?
We're
On
we're
the-
voting on
On the
those.
meeting.
on the
We're
left.
voting on
The
the
meeting as
You
amended.
gotta do the amendment first.
Gotta do the amendment first.
Mask
Well,
mandate.
yes, right.
So we're voting on
And
the
then we-
amendment to the mandatory meeting
Correct.
first.
Correct. We're voting on the amendment that everybody has to wear a mask at the meeting, and we'll get the whole thing. Okay, ready to vote?
Yep.
Those in favor? Okay. Those opposed?
That's not
Okay, no. Abstentions? I don't vote. I put my hand up to give everybody a vision.
Michael?
Okay.
I got the no, was there an abstention?
One no. Michael's a no. Motion carries, so if we pass the face-to-face, everybody will wear a mask, okay? More discussion now on the motion as amended. Ready to vote? Those in favor of masks and face-to-face? All right, please, hands up. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in favor. Noes, please. One. Michael's on a roll. 1. Abstentions. Thank you. Motion passes. Meeting's going to be face-to-face with masks. Yes, Michael.
I assume a lot of the public is going to be here. Right now, I don't think anyone's complained about how we've been able to separate the seats downstairs.
Brilliant job, yeah.
Where everyone's had a lot of room. If there is a big public attendance at this meeting, are they all gonna be up in the balcony and we're spread out down below?
I think we have to adapt to the situations where they are, you know? We can, we can move people a little tighter together in the RTM if it just looked like we had some overflow mob upstairs. I mean, excuse me, public attendees, excuse me for that. Yes, Joe?
Wayne, if we're all spaced out, but the public isn't spaced out, is that the same opportunity for the public? We're spaced out downstairs, and the public is all jammed in upstairs, bumper to bumper.
The same opportunity comes under the statute which allows you to have different types of meetings, a combined meeting, some attending, some not. That's the only statute that requires they have to have access to the same opportunities. There's no mandatory requirement that they have the same opportunities to speak or vote in a regular meeting, an all-person meeting, that's what the moderator.
So that's because
We're okay.
in medicine, during the AIDS crisis, if you double glove, if you have somebody come in with a history of AIDS, and you double glove, that was malpractice. Because you treated one patient different than you treated another patient. You gotta treat all patients the same.
There's a specific section in the rules, your rules, that talks about the authority that the moderator has in terms of allowing people to speak and for how long they can speak. So he has control over that. That's different from the statute, that if you have a combined meeting, some here, some not, the public has the right to have access.
But you could jam them in upstairs.
I'm not sure you can jam them in, you can have safety concept. But you can request that they meet in a place where it's not interfere with the meeting.
Okay, Peter?
Why don't we make sure we have plenty of mics upstairs with the general public will be, that should take care of that, shouldn't it?
Yeah, that's fine.
And downstairs too, so
Or even
people,
walk in the room and they can see it.
yeah.
Believe us, many of us have been at Board of Ed meetings where us in the, gallery are stacked up and people are standing at various times. And the Board of Ed is nicely seated up in front, so.
But they have a beautiful hybrid option
Okay,
that
well,
works.
that's-
Well, we will
Right.
one day.
Now, can I, we'll set the agenda for the June 27 meeting of the RTM. So can I have a motion to have this item on the special meeting, the approval of the acquisition of Great Island by the town of Darien and approval of an appropriation and bond authorization for the purchase of Great Island. Can I have a motion in favor? Yes,
I'll make a motion.
Patty,
In
okay, second? Thank you, Peter. Discussion? Ready to vote? Those in favor? Aye, please, there we go. Teresa's having a hard time, okay. Noes? 2 noes.
Oh, no, sorry, I'm still up from the yes.
It's easier to just identify the 2 noes, which is Ann and Teresa.
Can I ask another question of Wayne, please?
Please.
What permission do we need to have to share the contract with members of our committee?
It has and is my opinion that any member of your board, RTM board or committee thereof, who wishes to view the contract has the right to do so and will be provided with a copy.
Okay, and do I notify you of who wants it so that you can put their personal name on it as opposed to having mine?
If in fact you wanted me to send it out to the entire board, the entire RTM, then I can take care of that.
Okay,
RTM.
because,
I think that would generate a lot of goodwill.
yeah, because when I spoke, one of the things, when I spoke to Monica today, she was unaware that the F&B committee, that we had gotten it on rules, but other members of the F&B committee had not had it. Not that I think it's earth-shattering in reading.
I
It's
shared
very
mine with
standard.
TZ&H at with Wayne's approval.
Okay,
Jack, the thing we have to be cautious about is that we have a signed contract, but it is not a contingency-free contract. And under the FOI statutes, under the FOI 1-210, which provides for certain exemptions, we, in my opinion, have the right as a group, whether this group or another group, to go into executive session to review that contract until such time as the deal is finalized.
I agree.
Any discussion in public has the potential for damaging the terms or affecting the terms of the contract. I don't think that is advisable to do that, so we should look upon it as privileged information until we get further down the road. But certainly, and I have always been consistent with this, anyone on this RTM who wishes it, or if you wish me to send it out to all of them, I will do that. You are entitled to see it, and I have advised that to anyone that has asked me.
the other thing that Wayne and I had a conversation on, just so that everybody knows, and I think it needs to be discussed by Wayne at the beginning of the meeting. This is very similar to a union contract. We are not negotiating the terms and conditions of that contract. If you do not like the fact that they're not painting the roads pink, then you don't get to add that in, vote the contract down. This is an up or down, it's not to negotiate the terms.
And we have had that conversation, and I do agree with that. You folks are not there to negotiate the contract. You certainly are there to reject it if you wish, but it's an up or down vote.
Okay. Now, there is additional information that has to be added into this resolution, and that is the amount of money involved. And that we won't know until the Board of Finance votes. So if I could have a motion to allow the moderator to insert the results of the Board of Finance vote into here so that you have numbers in here, then I would take a motion that would allow the moderator to do that. Because that way I don't have to call another meeting of the Rules Committee to change the agenda.
I would say that you get the opportunity to do that, providing we also get a copy of the resolution for which they are voting on.
Right. Well, that's public, anyway, I hear what you're saying, yeah.
But,
Our agenda will be public.
yeah, I just wanna, you know.
I'll get there, Teresa.
Yeah, you go into the packet, it should be there, so.
Right.
So
Teresa?
I just want to clarify why I voted no. I can't speak for Ann. I don't like the language in the agenda saying we are going to approve it. I would rather the language change, we are going to discuss the purchase of. Because using the word we are going to approve it makes the assumption we have decided that, right? There's just something about that word, we are going to approve it.
Excuse, Jack, one second, because she's talking to me. It's up or down? You either approve or you don't. And if you don't, you vote no.
But Seth, to that point, all of my agendas when we're voting on something is to discuss and take action.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
prefer
to
that,
approve.
discuss and take action would be better. I would vote
Well,
yes on
if you
that.
look at, I took the wording off of the last RTM meeting on the HHR. You know, I just used that. So, yes, I'm sorry, Wayne.
Maybe it would give you more comfort if in fact we put the language in such a way so that the, our team is being asked to consider the acquisition of.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That might be
Yes.
softer.
100%.
Yes.
But there's gotta be something in the document that evidences to future generations and anyone else that wants to know that your body did or did not vote to acquire this property.
Correct.
So if we put in the word consider to.
Consider and vote, maybe?
Consider is not an action, though. I mean, that's.
Consider and
Consider
vote.
That's why you have to have the second word, consider and acquire, or to consider to acquire.
That's why I like to
But
discuss.
still
Yeah,
consider.
action. Michael, consider
Discussion,
and
take
vote.
action.
That's why.
The action is voting.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I would put in consider and vote.
Seth, can I just make a recommendation? If you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
want to tinker with the approval of a bond resolution, which we need to go out and work with bond counsel, any changes to the verbs versus the way that you've approved HHR, whether you approve 120,000 for the sidewalks, the 460 for the track, if you're going to change any language like that, because it, I guess it's more, easier to sound softer, I would make sure it works with bond counsel, because there's very specific language, ways that votes need to take place. So, I appreciate, Teresa, you don't want to make it seem like you're definitely doing it, but let's just make sure that the legality of it sort of rules.
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
Okay, again, so, all right, so give me a motion that I'm allowed to modify this with town council so that we, you know, that we,
I will make that motion that you can modify it to be appropriate with bond council.
I'll second.
thank you.
Who was that second?
Ready to
Lois.
vote?
Lois.
Lois, ready to vote? All in favor, please? Okay, looks good. Noes? Oh, this is very good. And no abstentions?
No nos?
No noes, no abstentions. Unanimous, the motion passes, and thank you. I'll get it worked out so that it works. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Seth, before we
Yes.
go, can we take Wayne up on his offer to send us all the document and with the exploit, all the RTM?
With the
So we don't have,
explanation.
so each one
Well,
of
yeah,
our
he says
committees
he-
don't have to go to him and say, will you please? Could you
Right.
take
Happy
care
to
of
do that, I will.
Right, with an
And with an
explanation.
explanation that they can't, yeah.
Can't
I
share it with them.
hear a yes on that. Yes, Patty?
Could we also fine tune the order of the meeting? So I assume our
Well,
first
there's only
select woman,
there's one item.
Monica goes first. I don't know if John Zaborowski is presenting as well second. I don't know if Jim Palin is presenting third, and then our committees. Then primary and then secondary.
Absolutely not. This is our meeting.
Right.
We present first, public officials get to present second. If John is presenting at the request of Monica, because typically what we would do is first selectman, and then we would give the honor to the chairman.
Is that
of the-
recently typical?
No, that's always been
Because-
the case. Always been the case that this is our meeting, we cover it, and then public, or elected officials are capable of making comments.
That's why we do it in the order that we do it.
Right.
I asked, if you recall, after one committee, the primary reports, then we go to the secondaries, and then we go to town officials. And usually if the first selectman's there, we put the first selectman up first.
Okay.
And then Board of Finance.
Yes, sir.
Can I just finish with
I'll come back. Okay,
with
Pat,
all
wait,
due
Pat is-
respect,
Pat
as
is
a follow-up to that.
completing your
and with
thought,
all
yeah.
due respect, because I know how hard Jack works, and I always appreciate that. But last night, it felt, because of a number of reasons, technology and everything else, those folks from HHR who are the owners, so to speak, for lack of a better word, of this project. We've spent all this time going through all the boards, doing all the work. By the time they got to present, it was as if everything was already said, and then they were still presenting. And it just felt to me that it feels like the people who, with the buck stops with them, so to speak, I don't mean financially.
Well,
don't
Patty,
overreact to
we
that,
dialogued
but
with
that's-
them ahead of time.
Okay, I'm just saying, I talked to several people about this, and they had said in the past, that's how it used to be, and it seems like we've now hybrided to or changed to where we're always going first. If that's not the case, but I'm just putting it out there.
It has to be understood, this is our meeting, it's our legislative body.
Yeah.
If during the time, if it's if HHR is gonna give an update on the project, similar to how Ox Ridge Building Committee has during the building process, they would be like the guest speaker that we have up front. In this particular case, Chris, David, and myself, and actually Edward Shecker as well, all discussed what sections we would be doing. So when I did things, there were certain areas of contingency, explaining what they were, explaining how they came to it, and all that I knew David would come. I knew that Ed wasn't going to go into detail of what was going on in each of the schools. And so Chris covered that area. So the only areas where we overlapped a little bit was because there were a lot of questions on the grants, not only at the Board of Finance, but also at the Board of Selectmen, so we wanted to double cover that. And, they didn't talk about debt, I did. And for the most
all
part,
I
they
can
didn't
say,
talk about
Jack-
the details on what the costs were,
Jack?
other than final.
Yeah, we dialogued ahead of time to work the whole arrangement out with them.
So we didn't.
I was on the phone with Tom Rice about it, about when he was gonna come in, what he was gonna say. We worked it out ahead of time. So he knew what to expect. And he didn't have any problem with it at all, so.
So the
Again,
committees
just try
but
to-
the committees will be reporting what their the committee chairs will be reporting what their committee discussed.
Right, they have a vote. They say how many people were at the meeting and what the vote was.
And a lot of the harder content, not harder, the more of the detailed content will come from the selectmen or the Board of Finance.
Maybe. Well, I'm presenting a model there. Exactly. Yeah, this
We'll talk to
financial
them.
will be presented.
We're way ahead of ourselves on that piece. We have to wait till we get, down the finish line and see what questions are out there, what things we feel ought to be elaborated upon by the people who are proposing this. So.
I don't have a
we'll
problem
work
with
it out.
questions, that's fine, I guess if it's, it was 10:45 when we left last night,
Yes, ma'am.
so.
And I just think we made a big move by having a face-to-face meeting. A lot of the problems were just whether we could keep the meeting going or not. I didn't want to get anybody panicked there, but I was panicked. I'm looking at this thing saying, oh my goodness. So we'll get it organized, and the trick is keeping everybody happy and making sure we get all the cards on the table so that we can vote. Lois?
I just want to support what Frank was saying about making sure the district chairs have some responsibility for making sure there's a quorum in there, each of the districts, or some, however you want to do it. But,
Thank you.
that we actually have a quorum in each district so that, well, it's going to be in person only, but
We're
we shouldn't have a problem. Okay.
That's one thing you don't have a problem counting, If the body's there, it's
But they
good.
can
You should-
encourage
you should
it,
be
find out
surprised.
ahead of time.
You should know ahead of time exactly
Yes.
who's gonna be there.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
in case there is a problem.
Yeah.
Very true, yes. Jim?
So this morning, somebody asked me a question just about the RTM meeting that was going to take place here. And just like the same way that you guys decided to make it be in person, to make sure the public, there's no issues there. I was asked whether they thought like requiring masks would cause any issue with the public coming or not coming. And whether we think, like similar to the other issue, like, does that cause any issue down the road that we've required or did not require people to wear masks in order to be able to come speak?
I will confess that I had more than one person come by me and put their mouth right up next to my ear and say, what are you doing? about having everybody wear masks, and I said, listen, the rules committee sets the rules, okay? So the rules committee felt that with 100 people in the room, there ought to be masks, and that's the way it's gonna be, you know?
So there's no possibility.
My job is just to try and marshal the cats, you know.
So no possibility that that could ever cause a problem with the vote, right? Or like the meeting itself?
That's a question for Wayne.
That's
We
fine.
had a very,
Yeah, yeah.
we had a very good
Yeah, I'm
turnout.
so glad you
for
came
budget.
tonight, Wayne.
Yeah, we had a good turnout for the budget meeting when there was no hybrid option. We had a strong quorum. like-
Almost 80 people were there
Yeah,
with masks.
Yeah, I mean, if a person doesn't want to come because they have to wear a mask, that's their
No, I think
choice.
the question though was the public, it was not about the RTM.
I mean, again, if you're talking about 100 people in a room, and if you just have a few people who are uncomfortable because of their health, I think you have to accommodate those people.
Well, the question that I was asking.
Yeah, is if somebody from the
What
public
if
doesn't want
somebody
to
from the
get
public
something?
says, I don't want to wear
Then
a
they don't
mask,
come.
and therefore I'm not going to come, and I'm going to challenge the meeting, because I wasn't given an
That's the
opportunity to participate
Or
the
that's
way
the
that I can
question.
participate with the other.
Should
That's
that
fine.
happen, the public go over there and
That's
talk
their
to us.
choice.
You know,
You know, in other words,
Jim, I'm gonna
they
give you
can
this.
talk.
All right, everybody, one at a time here. Yeah, Peter.
You could flip the issue, the complete 180. So I don't know where you, how you analyze that.
Jim, I don't worry too much about that.
Mark?
Yeah, I agree with
Anybody
that.
can make a claim. Would they be successful on that? I doubt it. The difficulty arises with Johnny Jones shows up, let's say he's a non-member, and he wants to come in without a mask. He says, screw you, I'm not putting a mask on. You throw him out, get the police come, how do you enforce it?
Let me know, I'll take care of
It may
them.
well be
Give them a portable mic and go stand in the corner.
Yeah, Mark, did you?
No, that resolved it. I mean, I was
Okay.
keying off the word, someone doesn't want to wear a mask. Flip it on
Are
its side.
we-
If someone needs a mask to be safe, that's different than not wanting to wear a mask, but.
Are
sounds
we
like a good
ready
answer.
to adjourn?
Yes.
Oh, no, I've got a Teresa.
Ready.
Teresa's on fire tonight. Yes, Teresa.
I'd make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, all right.
Second.
I'll take it. Oh, and in seconds. All in favor, please rise.
What? You